we're going to start talking about games. We're going to break down the last two games, which are the Pathfinder home opener and our last game on Tuesday night against BlackRock. But before we do that, let's see how Coach Dan is doing today.
Doing well. Yeah, this is it's good to be back. I feel like it's been a little while. We haven't had much action, and then we were both traveling all over the place. So it's good to be back, and I'm excited to be talking about the green again.
Yeah, it was a long weekend for the both of us, and then right back at it on Tuesday night with the Vermont Green, and Dan back to his coaching duties here after coaching all weekend out in Needham, and I was a spectator, and Dan had a little bit different kind of stress than I did.
Two teams coaching in Needham off the back of just landing from a work trip in Vegas. I still don't know what day of the week it is, man. I'm still going crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, we got another game to deal with in a couple of days. So
yeah,
right back on the bus, and I really appreciate you being here and taking some time to discuss things. And it seems like people really like this segment of the podcast. So that said, let's just get right into it. We had our home opener last Saturday. Obviously, neither one of us were there. I got to watch a bit of it on stream, and then got to do a little bit of a rewatch again. And we've talked a lot about and I'm learning every single time I talk to you a little bit more about the game itself. So we'll discuss the home opener first. Now, were there any surprises for you with the lineups? I mean, from our previous two games, we had a little bit of rotation in the lineup, and I don't know if that was for any particular reason other than maybe get some guys some rest or whatever it was. But what did you see with the lineups? And it looked like he came out like a 4-1-4-1. What kind of a tactical advantage would that give a team like Vermont Green?
So the 4-1-4-1, it's not a new formation. It's not a new tactical approach by any means, but it certainly is coming back into the soccer zeitgeist quite a bit. I just recently converted my under 15s to a 4-1-4-1, and I think it definitely has some tactical advantages when you're squaring up against the traditional 4-4-2 or even a 4-3-3. Insofar as it allows for two ways to break out of the back. You can play traditionally out of the back through your wings, and you can use that to quickly sort of start an attack and drive the ball up the field if you're able to catch a team on the counter, or maybe catch them sitting a little too far high. But it also allows you to use that number 6, right, the one sitting above your back line, as a single pivot. To slowly bring the ball up, to draw players into the space that you're wanting to vacate, and with a little bit more security. Using that first one, like I said, that 6, really does give a little bit more depth to VGFC, both in an attacking sense and a defending sense. You probably noticed this, but when we were under pressure in both of these games, we essentially looked like we were playing a 5 at the back. Right, you had that 6 dropping back in between your two center backs, playing a little bit higher, right? Not in a straight line, not a flat 5, but a little bit higher. And then you had one of your two central mids in that second block of 4 dropping in to play that top of the box sort of defensive role to make sure any cutbacks were cut out. So the 4-1-4-1, it's a relatively safe formation. It offers a lot of versatility in how they want to attack. And I'm not surprised that they've sort of started off in that formation as they're trying to figure out where everybody's true position is at the beginning of the season.
Right. So typically Pfeiffer would run like a 4-2-3-1, like a traditional 4-2-3-1. Yep. Now, do you think that the lineup he put out there was just kind of purpose built for this 4-1-4-1 because he saw something tactically that that he could take advantage of with a team like Pathfinder, or does it seem more like we're still trying to like find our feet and look to see, you know, what this team, what he has in this team and what he has in these players?
It's a tough call. I mean, I would probably go with what you had just said. And they're trying to figure out where everybody's home is. And the big reason that sticks out is that we played Pacella in that 6. I think that's a spot for Musa long term. If we want him contributing more to the attack, be a big presence in the box, but we also want him to have his defensive responsibilities. That's where I see Musa, and he didn't start in that position, which tells me that maybe Pfeiffer's still trying to figure something out. Maybe he sees something that I don't. Maybe he wants that 6 playing higher up the pitch or lower. As Pacella, we both know, is more attacking minded in a lot of instances. But I definitely think that going forward, this 4-1-4-1 does lead itself more to the personnel that we have.
Right.
I know Bazzini up top. He's a great player. He knows what he's doing, but he is that single striker. That's where he's best, as that one single striker, either to hold up and move the ball or to be the guy breaking down lines through his runs. So maybe there's some hybrid that'll come out. Maybe we'll go back to that 4-2-3-1 in the long term, but that's yet to be seen.
Because that is kind of what he switched to in the second half, and I think maybe, I don't know, it just seeing it looked more comfortable for a lot of the players.
Yeah.
It seemed that they were on the attack a little bit more through that, and it seemed the passing was a little more crisp. I don't know, like defensively, what Pathfinder did to slow us down in that first half. I know a lot of the second half was a lot of finishing issues and that kind of stuff, but I think, you know, for me, we were the better club in that. In that, but what did you see, like, as far as like defensively, that Pathfinder was doing to cut off those lanes through the middle and try and force us to work on the outside?
So if you look at both teams we played, actually, Pathfinder and BlackRock, it's not BlackRock. I'm sorry, was it BlackRock?
Yeah, it was BlackRock. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I was right. They both played what I call sort of area denial defense. So they would allow us side to side movement, 20, 30, 40 yards out. The second we try to press in through the middle to the top of the box, that area, they set up a hard line. They had both of their central mids dropping into that space to make it extremely congested. And they forced a lot of shots from outside the box and a lot of crosses, which is, you know, it's a style. I wouldn't call it so much of a low block, but their positioning really sits in that kind of area where it's a bend don't break mentality. And so when we own possession, like we did for a lot of that game, we're able, it looks like our offense isn't firing on all cylinders because we're taking, you know, shots from further out, we're whipping more crosses in, maybe a couple of our runs are getting stymied out at the top of the box. But it really is a defensive strategy. They were willing to let us take shots. They were willing to let us test our luck from certain angles, but they would not allow us into that central area, which is something that a lot of coaches with younger teams, more inexperienced teams tend to do, as it's a safety strategy, which was interesting to see.
Right. Now, and not to kind of beleaguer the point here, but like, defensively, we looked at times a little shaky, I guess. You know, like we weren't yet well equipped to handle a big counterattack. I know we have the players to bomb down the wings. I know we have the players to in the defense that have the recovery pace to get back. But it seems like, and I think we saw this in both games.
Yeah.
We playing a super high defensive line in the first game, at least, and we were getting countered on almost at will at some points. Do you think that our defensive players are you know, on the outs? I worry about our defensive, our wing backs, if you will, or our left and right backs. I worry about that kind of ability to defend rather than being kind of inverting, kind of like it, for lack of a better term, what Pep does is inverts those wing backs and allows them to be forward attackers.
Yeah.
Do we have those type of players defensively? Because I know Castillo is hurt now, right?
Yep.
And Threadgold can play that, but like defensively, are they defensively adept at being able to play in that kind of a role?
I certainly think so. I don't necessarily getting wingbacks involved into attack effectively and also having them have that presence of mind and that ability to recover is not just a personnel or an individual, skill or tactic. These guys are still learning how their teammates react to certain situations on the ball. There may be instances where they pinch up, expecting their strong side midfielder to drop into the center a little bit more to have their back, and they just haven't spent enough time together for that to be second nature, right? It's still, we're still in that very early period of the season where they're all learning about each other as quick as we're learning about them. So having those players that can be that dominant presence on the wing as defensive players, I think I like seeing that now, even though it may lead to a couple of counters, because I know that'll get worked out. I would rather us be aggressive in the early stages of the season and have it work out through the rest of our regular season games than start overly cautious, overly defensive, and then run into games where we lack a presence on the outside or we're not able to get an attack going. That's my 2 cents on that.
Right. Now in this game, this first game, we did get to see a little more set piece brilliance
Yes.
in our goal. It seems to be the same kind of strategy that we employed through the Open Cup games, which is put the ball to the far post and let that man on the far post do the work to either score the goal or at least gather up the ball. Like Reed Fisher did when he put the header down to Bazzini for the goal. Was that purposeful, or do you think he was trying to score?
I have a saying with my boys: if the ball goes in the back of the net, you meant to do it. If the ball leads to an assist, you meant to do it.
Fair enough.
And in the end, do we want low angle headers from the back post? Probably not. They should be squaring that 9 times out of 10. But you can't score if you don't shoot. So if we're able to work out a game plan where we put the ball to the back post every time on those set pieces, but what we do with that ball is different each time, or we cycle through 3-4 different things, that's fine. We just can't become predictable. And we saw that a bit even in the Open Cup games where we stuck 2 in from the back post in our first Open Cup game. And then we sent every ball to that back post from there on out in that game, and they stymied us real quick. So when we look at what these guys are doing nowadays from set pieces, it's incredibly important just to remember that we're trying to build a full team here, and we don't necessarily have 8 hours a week to put on set pieces. So if they find a system of 2 or 3 that work well, I'm happy with that. And I think that we've seen that be their strategy going so far this season. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people were disappointed in the fact that it was a draw, that we weren't playing this free flowing attacking football. That it wasn't a sexy game to watch, right? It was just, it was there, and in the end, unfortunately, we gave up that goal, that equalizer. It very well could have been 4-0 at that point. Yeah. And 4-1 wouldn't have been an issue. What about the finishing? I mean, because Gabe missed a pretty easy sitter, right? And then who was it? Bawa who missed one too.
Yep.
So I mean, is that something we need to be concerned about?
I don't think it's an issue in the long run.
Right.
I look, getting the ball to where it needs to be is 99% of the battle. Putting away is 1%. These guys are all high-level collegiate athletes. They've been playing soccer their whole lives. Maybe some of them were sort of taken by the moment, playing in front of more fans than they had before, playing in a different situation, a different state against maybe a higher level team than they played against before. I don't necessarily see our finishing issues sticking around. However, what I would say is that in all the games I've watched, and both live and recorded, we need to figure out how to put the ball away with our legs, with our foot when it's coming in from a low cross. Because if you watch both Open Cup games and our not our home opener, but the second game against BlackRock, multiple times the winger did great work, got around his guy, whipped a low cross in, and we either blazed it over or missed it. So maybe that's just a drill that Fife can run with the guys and figure it out in a couple of hours, because it's not necessarily a huge problem, or not necessarily a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that moving ahead, it looks like it's shaping up to be a 3-team race again. And especially depending, especially if next week, and we'll get into that, or this coming weekend, we get into that soon. That we get that win against Connecticut. It's going to change the whole dynamic for the rest of the league, for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But let's move on to Tuesday night. Tuesday night was my first match, live, yours as well this year. I felt a lot of excitement for myself, and Virtue Field never disappoints, right?
No.
So we had a lot of rotation. Like I said before, we went back to the 4-2-3-1, where Castro moving from inside to the outside, Bawa sitting on the bench, O'Neill got out there. We saw Sam Layton in the middle, and we saw Winshower on the right-hand side, where and Gabe was, played his little Swiss Army knife role and moved to the other side. The other thing we saw, like I love, honestly, the size of Reed Fisher and Drexler.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be a great center back pairing. The thing that I think that we're going to fall into here with the goalkeeping is, I think they're going to alternate all season long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with those changes, do you again, back to that point, do you think it was this game now? Was it intentional to rotate these players to get them a little bit of rest because these games are coming thick and fast, or is it more of I see a weakness I can exploit here?
I mean, knowing the coaching staff the way that I do, firsthand experience with a couple of the guys there, that certainly is a possibility, that they saw the lineup, they watched some film, and they said, all right, I think that Ba was better used as a sub this game. Let's throw O'Neill on that wing, mix up the style, mix up the vision. But also, that's hard to say when it's a full-blown formation change. What I think that the coaches probably saw was, and you said this earlier, a lack of that free-flowing possession-based game that we had played for the past 2 years. And this was maybe a step to sort of remedy that. And if you watch the game, you saw that, yes, there were periods where we couldn't win the ball back because maybe we had some tired legs, and it was right before Bawa came on, actually, in the second half, where they had possession for a good 2 minutes straight without us really getting a touch on the ball. But for periods in that game, we we not only started on the front foot, but we started on the front foot and then grew in ascendancy from that point on. It was much more reminiscent of how we played last year than the first game was. So it's important, or the first home game was. And I think it's important to note that, just because, again, growing team, young guys coming together, and with Musa in that holding midfielder role, I think it gave us a little bit more confidence to hold the ball in more dangerous places, knowing that we had that presence behind the ball in case something went wrong.
Yeah. I think Musa playing that, like you said, that holding midfielder. He got the captain's armband for this game. Mm-hmm. Playing next to a guy like Sam Leighton. Leighton, I think, was at times the best player on the field.
Yeah.
I know he got the Maple Man of the Match. But at times I think that, like, he left a little bit to be desired. I think he had trouble linking up with the defenders, and creating that link to be, to the forwards. And I don't know if that was a lot to do with the way that BlackRock was defending, because, they've already seen us once, right?
Yep.
But I feel like there needs to be a little bit more cohesion between him and Xavi, and him and Reed on that side. Did you see it the same way? Or, I mean,
so this is why I'm not a huge fan of the 4-2-3-1. It is because that role of pivot,
right,
yeah, is technically shared between two people, right? We don't have a high and a low mid. We have two holding mids playing side by side, and it takes a lot of communication and a lot of knowledge about each other's games for that movement up and down to be effective. I've been working on it with some of my 15s for the better part of 7 months, and they're just now, and these guys have played together for the past 4 years. They're just now starting to get it. So it is, in certain situations, it's Musa's job to be that link. In certain situations, it's Sam Leighton's job to do that linking. But having the wherewithal to understand at a moment's notice, hey, this is my role, Musa bumps, or hey, this is my role, Leighton bumps up. It takes a lot. If they're able to figure that out on the fly, and be aware, cognizant decision makers, I think that two in that midfield there gives us a little bit more ball security. If Coach Agus, Coach Pfeiffer are worried about possession in that area, especially if we're trying to catch teams on the break, those guys need to be in sync 100% of the time, or what's going to happen is they're both going to drop or they're both going to go, and we're going to have a big gap between our backs and our forwards.
So, this game, we actually scored. We actually scored a really tough goal. It came late. It came later than we were comfortable with.
Yes,
from one of our, for lack of a better term, our number 10, I guess. Zach Zenge, guy who's typically more comfortable shooting from the outside, a guy who's usually more comfortable, as far as I've seen, being somebody who's going to distribute, get maybe that hockey assist, but he likes to shoot from the outside. But I think he showed a little bit of will and determination on that goal.
Yep.
And a lot of fight. Like, he didn't give up on it. Which created that goal. So I think that, like, what did you see in the build up to that goal? Like, because that's we're used to seeing team goals, right?
Yeah.
So
in games like this, in games of the two games we've had, really, you sort of have to be okay with winning ugly. You have to be okay with saying, this is my moment. I'm going to put the team on my back. I'm going to be a little bit more selfish. I'm going to be, maybe stray away from the total football approach that we were trying, and sort of try something different in situations where we've been getting shut down. And I think that's really important to note that kind of play in a vacuum and in on its own can be detrimental. But when I trust Zach Sangay to make the right decision. He's a smarter, better soccer player than I ever was. So when it's done correctly, I think that it's certainly something that we like to see, because it shows a will to win, right? It shows a group of guys that are committed to getting a result, regardless of if everything's going to plan. And I think that's always sort of been the spirit of VGFC, and I'm glad to see that it's sticking around.
Yeah, I agree too. Now, defensively, for me, my man of the match was 100% Reed Fisher.
Yeah.
I think he saved us in probably 4 to 5 situations in the second half.
Yeah. That one track back tackle he had the last
unreal.
10 minutes of the game. Yeah.
Unreal. Reminds you of like one of your own Saliba, like the way that Saliba defends.
Yep.
And I said it too, like a Christian Romero and like even a Van Dijk and a younger version of Van Dijk, can track back and play a risky tackle like that and have the accuracy to get the ball without fouling the guy. I think this guy is going to be invaluable for the entire season for us.
Yeah,
what do you think about him? I mean,
I love him. We talked about him on one of the earlier versions or one of the early episodes of this podcast, where we talked about his speed, his agility, and his ability to get up. And I think I remember saying in that podcast, he's going to come back and make a death saving tackle at the end of a game one of these days. And I'm damn glad I was right. I think that he offers a level of security that we really haven't had in the back in a long time. Of course, we've had Musa in the back, and I love Musa. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's better utilized higher up the pitch in some instances. So having Reed Fisher there as that last stitch, that last man who sets the line, I think gives a lot of security to our guys, especially in a season where, as you said, we're going to be switching goalkeepers, maybe not every game, but pretty regularly. So making sure that we have some sort of constant presence back there that the guys know that they can fall back on if needed is certainly something that is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right. So let's move on. We're going to move on to our next opponent. Our next opponent is AC Connecticut, a team that in the past 2 seasons we have played twice. So they were our only game for the first 2 seasons of this club. The thing I love about this league is that you have that one team that you don't get to play that often. Right. And it happens to be like, unfortunately, the 2 of the top 3 teams only have to play each other once this year, which I think is a travesty. And it's kind of disgusting in the way that the schedules are made. That's a conversation for a different day, a different podcast. This AC Connecticut team right now is lining up at 4th, and they're far behind. They're 1-1-1, right? Mm-hmm. They have not performed very well. However, the rest of the league also hasn't performed very well.
No.
We can I haven't seen much of them. I did a little bit of YouTube research today.
USL too. There's rarely anything out there.
Right, exactly. The one thing we know is that this team is not afraid to play wide open, and they're not afraid to come out attacking until they get punched in the mouth. And it's like everybody's got to play until they get punched in the mouth. It's the old Mike Tyson saying. Tactically speaking, who knows what they're going to come out with, because their players, what I've looked at, they have almost 0 returning players. So, what are we going to expect at Virtue Field? Like,
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to be honest with you. It's always scary playing a team that A, you don't play all that frequently, but B is rolling out a whole new squad. You don't know what you're going to get. I don't think that it is too wild to say that they're going to come out in try to get on the front foot as quickly as they can, maybe go long in the start, sort of test our back, see if they can get us to flub our lines and poach one on a counter on a long ball. I don't, based off of their form and what little I've seen, I don't necessarily see them playing a similar style of football to the other squads. But the one thing I will say is that I do expect them to, much like Pathfinder and BlackRock, give us 75% of the field and sit back on that last 25 and say, you're not coming through the middle. We're going to block this out. We're going to deny you this area. If you want to try to dribble 3 guys and get by us, have a go at it, but we're not going to let you play through here easily. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play a counter heavy style of play, especially with some of the names I've seen that they have. So, again, I could sit here and evangelize all day about what I think they're going to do, but like I said, it's a whole new coat of paint on that team. So we never know.
Right. And one person that we do know a little bit about is one of our own, that's Sam McCann. So I'm going to give props to Sam McCann. I'm not going to sit here and trash his team too much, his new team too much, but I hope that we at least get a nice showing out of Sam.
Yeah, it's tricky though, right? Because Sam plays typically in that wide position. He's played up top a couple of times, but doesn't have the size of a center forward. And I think that right now, the way that we're set up, depending on if we go with that 4-1-4-1 or that 4-2-3-1, I think that's going to make his life difficult. And as a Vermont Green supporter, I think that's fantastic. As a guy who loves Sam McCann, I think that's, it gives an opportunity to show us what he's got. Will I be happy if he puts one in the back of our net? No. But do I want to see him struggle in vain and do his best? Yes, I do.
Absolutely. Now, as far as what we might throw out there, I think you see, and we talked about the past 2 games, who's come in. I think that we see some more rotation back to what we saw with the home opener, maybe on the weekend. Yep. But I do think there are some players that are settling in. I think Drexler's settling in. I think Reed Fisher's settling in.
Yep.
And I think we're going to end up having to see that back 4 is going to be the same. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Wickham back in there. However, like our goalkeepers haven't had a ton to do.
Yeah, right? It's not. We're not
playing necessarily. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily Lute's fault that on that goal, but I don't necessarily see our midfield kind of set yet. I'd love to see if we're going to have a double pivot. I would love to see Pichella and Musa together. But who knows? I'm looking to see Bawa out there. I'm looking to see.
I was about to say, I after the show we put on the second half of our game on Tuesday, I need to see him get more time there. I think that he has a tremendous upside with his physicality and his pace. So I think leaving him off the team sheet or leaving him off the starting 11 is a bit of a mistake, but I'm not going to speak for the coaches there.
Right. That'll be for the other podcast when we trash Pfeiffer. I'm kidding. But yeah, so Saturday is it's the weather's supposed to be beautiful. I'm going to encourage everybody to come out.
Yes.
And give your best full-throated cheer for the green. And give yourselves a cheer or give Sam McCann a cheer when he's out there. And just come out and enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a great day. It's going to be nice and warm. It's going to be sunny. Come say hi to the Green Mountain Boys when we're in the parking lot. We'll be out there hooting and hollering, having a good time before the game, and we'll march into the game. Come march in with us and chant with us. it'll be a wonderful day.
I'm just excited to get to see a full game at the stadium. I haven't gotten to do that yet. So, I'll be there as early as you need me there. Game kicks off at 6. I'll be there at 3. Like wherever you need me, I'll be there.
There you go. Unfortunately, I have a game in Southern New Hampshire that I have to attend with my son.
Oh, boo-hoo. Your son's winning state championships. Oh, no. Oh, no.
It's more of the 6:30 drive to Southern New Hampshire. That's
rough. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That's a little rough for me. He'll be able to sleep in the car, but that's perfectly fine. But so just to remind everybody, we are the United Green Podcast. This is Talking Tactics with Coach Dan. Soon to have its own home. It will be a standalone podcast that we're going to promote, and we'll have more guests on with Coach Dan of Coach Dan's choosing.
That's first I'm hearing of that. That's cool.
Yeah. I've decided this as the executive producer, as Tyson calls me. So we'll be doing that. Hopefully we'll be getting to do that, do this podcast once a week until at least the end of the season and after, and then again back with you next season. But you can find us on Instagram and not yet on Twitter because the Spirit Coordinator has not gotten us on Twitter yet, but that's okay. Until then, you can also find us on the Blazing Musket. The Blazing Musket is a soccer website that specializes in reporting on New England soccer teams, whether it's USL 2 teams, USL Championship teams, all the way up through the MLS. And you can find them at theblazingmusket.com. You can also find them on Twitter, X, Instagram. I believe they may also be on TikTok. Don't quote me on that. But I guess this is the end of our time. Do you have any final thoughts, Coach Dan?
No, I'm excited to see how the squad ebbs and flows with the season. I think we have a very talented bench. I think we have a very talented set of starters, and I'm just very interested to see how Pfeiffer and Coach Agus sort of mend and weave this team together over the next couple of months. So, as always, up the green, and I'll see y'all next week.